Well, now we're really in chapter 2 of the book of John. And I want you to notice that Jesus never refers to Mary as mother. Okay? By the time we get to Jesus' ministry, he's 30 years old and he understands, I am the Son of God, and she was the means by which I took on flesh. But my ministry is not about this earthly family. My ministry is about the heavenly family. And from this point on, she's referred to as woman. Now, it sounds kind of demeaning in American, but it's really not supposed to be. It's sort of like a term of endearment, little woman, I don't know, sweetheart type of thing, okay? But it's very, very clear, and even at his crucifixion, when he wants John to take her into his home and take care of her, he says, woman, behold your son. In other words, Mary, John's going to take care of you. I would get skinned if I called my mother woman. But if I was God in the flesh and 30 years old, and understanding that I'm dying for her sins, I could do that. But I don't happen to be the Messiah. Okay, I'm going to shut up and get to the passage. On the third day, that's 3 days after he called Nathanael, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, they have no wine. Now, it was a very bad breach of etiquette if you were hosting a wedding and you ran out of wine. That was just inexcusable. And so usually what would happen, they would serve the best wine, and then if somebody wanted some more, then it was the cheap stuff. Jesus said to her, woman, what does it have to do with us? My hour has not yet come. What he meant by that was his hour was always referring to the time in which he would be crucified and resurrected and glorified. That was his hour. For example, in John 7:30, they were seeking to seize him, and no man laid his hand on him because his hour had not yet come. In other words, it didn't matter how much you wanted to kill Jesus. He was going to die on Passover, and he was going to die by crucifixion. He was going to be hung on a tree because that was a sign of taking our curse for us. And he was going to bleed because without the shedding of blood, there's no removal of sin. And Passover was a prediction of the death of Jesus for our sins. And so it didn't matter what mankind planned. Jesus' hour was going to be 9 a.m. on Passover in his third year of ministry. And so he told Mary, it's not time for me to be glorified in front of a bunch of people, and turning water into wine kind of forces my hand. But he did it anyway. Okay? And so, don't show my glory before it's shown when the Father has scheduled it to be. In John 5, he said, I do nothing on my own. I only do what I see the Father doing. I find it really interesting, though, that the Father said, okay, Jesus, go ahead. But let her know we're not going to be doing this. So this is the last time that Mary says, would you do this? Would you do that? So it's kind of a favor, but John kind of puts it forth as the first sign that Jesus was the Messiah by him turning the water into wine. Reminds me of a man who had gotten saved that I read about, who had gotten saved out of a life of being a beer alcoholic. He would drink like a six-pack just all at once and just get drunk every time that he would come home. And somebody had talked to him about Christ and about salvation and also about Christ's deliverance. And he got saved, and God delivered him from booze. And some of his old buddies were teasing him. You don't really believe that Bible, do you? Where Jesus turned water into wine and stuff like that. And the guy said, well, I tell you what, I believe that he turned water into wine, and also in my life, he turned beer into furniture. Have a great day.